Every who down in Who Newville liked the holidays a ton. But where to get great prices on gifts, they had no idea. None. They searched and they searched for great gifts under $25. Gifts for spouses and friends and even their toddlers. When suddenly one who shouted, Walmart has what you want, knowing they have Lego, Tree Hut, and low prices to flaunt. So they enjoy the holiday season as who's often do. Cheering and shouting, Walmart has incredible gifts. Who knew? Find gifts they'll love under $25 at Walmart.
Oh, Hilton stay, your beds are soft and cozy. No lumpy couch, no stiff futon, no shower line at crack of dawn. Oh, Hilton stay.
When you want holiday comfort you can count on, it matters where you stay. Enjoy comfortable rooms and friendly service when you stay with Hilton instead. Save up to 25% this season when you book with Hilton. Hilton for the stay. Terms apply.
Hello, I'm Diane Morgan. If you know who I am, you know who I am. If you don't, who cares? I'm here to explain Italian Time, a holiday phenomenon where Italians throw away their clocks and gather for eternity with San Pellegrino. I've been at this party so long that I've eaten 5 courses, hugged someone's grandma twice and been offered a job in the family restaurant. So this holiday season, make sure to bring enough San Pellegrino to last you through the meal, the after meal and the entire goodbye ritual. San Pellegrino, holiday on Italian Time.
Hello and welcome to The Price of Football, the show that looks at the money behind the beautiful game with me, Kevin Day, and Liverpool University's Marcel Marceau, otherwise known as Kieran Maguire. They're getting very elaborate, those countdowns, Kieran. It's only a 3-second countdown, it's taking 15 seconds. How are you, Kieran?
I'm irritatingly cheerful for a change.
It's not irritating, it's lovely. It's our questions pod, Kieran. We should point out before we start the questions pod a couple of things. First of all, because I'm going away at the weekend, it's Ali's birthday, so we're recording this much earlier than normal. So we're recording this on last Thursday, basically. So Sod's Law will indicate that sometime around Friday evening, Man City, or as you suggested, it'll be Christmas Eve, but around about 6 o'clock Christmas Eve. So if anything big does happen over the weekend, we won't mention it. What we will mention before the questions, Kieran, is that we do know the difference between Rangers and Celtic. Both of us had momentary brain freeze. I turned over two pages in my head mentally. Basically, you were distracted by a dog going completely potty at a postman who just dyed his hair red.
And we both had it written down correctly.
And we both had it written. We knew
Patrick Stewart and Kevin Thelwell had been dismissed by Rangers.
Yeah.
So apologies for that. I just went off on a tangent.
Well, we both assumed that we knew what we were doing. Yes. We both assumed the other one knew what they were doing, which in my case is normally 99% correct. So I'm assuming you know what you're doing, and you assume I know what I'm doing. It's a mistake. And also, as I've pointed out to several people from my family, yes, 2 people called Kevin and Kieran should know the difference between Rangers and Celtic. And we do. And bless, we haven't got that many questions today. So I'd like to take the opportunity, Kieran, to put a question to you of my own.
Oh, yes. Which
comes from just this afternoon. I was reading the BBC put out a special report about fake kits, basically. It doesn't contain much new information, but it does point out that some kits have been tested coming in from various parts of the globe that contain harmful toxins. And when the BBC put this to a survey of football fans, the survey of football fans said they don't care. They'd rather have a cheap shirt and a rash. So basically, if they can get a shirt for 12 quid and suffer a bit of itching, they're going to put up with that. And also interesting to note that the Premier League anti-counterfeiting squad in the last 5 years have seized about 70 million quid's worth of fake goods, which seems to me to be the very tip of the iceberg. That's not a lot of fake goods over 5 years. And also the problem is it's not illegal to buy counterfeit goods. It's illegal to sell them, but most of the people selling them are, of course, not in this country.
Yes, it's a complicated. I think it's a sensitive issue at a time when belts are being tightened like never before. But there are arguments on both sides. The clubs have intellectual property in their badge, and if you want to use that intellectual property, they're in a position to dictate price. You can buy fake handbags, you can buy fake Levi's, you can buy fake most things these days. I think football shirts are very prominent because they are something which we wear with pride. It has to be said that the retail price of shirts as sold by clubs and in the main retailers, those prices have far outstripped the rest of consumer inflation. In recent years, clubs will say, we need the money in order to comply with PSR. Fans will say, well, we understand that to an extent. I think this is. So I've read a lot of the responses to that BBC article. And the consensus is, as you rightly said, if the prices were £35 to £40, then I think people would buy them. We know from our discussions with manufacturers that the cost of producing a kit is probably in the region of £10 to £12. The fact that you can buy a counterfeit for £12, which is 90%, 98, 99% similar to that of the real kits, suggests that if these people are selling them for £12, exporting them from Asia and making a profit, then clearly the manufacturing cost is actually low. So you can have a sense of frustration. I had this discussion with somebody about Gucci handbags and Chanel handbags and so on. So you're prepared to pay £3,000, and to which their reply wasn't. And this did make a degree of sense. If I buy a Chanel handbag, it's going to last me 20. I'm going to use it for 20 years because it's a special thing, and also its second-hand value is maintained. With a Premier League football kit, which is going to go out of fashion within is going to be replaced within 12 months, the second-hand values collapse very quickly. Yes, we are aware that there is a market for retro shirts, but actually it's quite a small market. So therefore the value is going to decline. What happens if you've got 2 or 3 kids? Because I think I can begrudgingly pay the prices for adult kits. The price for kids kits, remember, there's no VAT on those. So and I've seen kid shirts which are effectively more expensive than the adult shirts once you adjust for VAT. I think is difficult to justify from a commercial point of view for something which is very disposable. So therefore, the parent or the grandparent or whoever it's going to be will go to these websites and will make the purchases. If we take a look at what happened in the music industry, you and I both remember from the 1970s, home taping is killing music, and yet we both, you're probably too cool for this, but on a Sunday night when it was downloading the top 40, you'd do it, and I used to religiously tape the John Peel Festive 50. Wasn't trying to kill music, still go to gigs and so on, and we've seen similar with the streaming of music now that Spotify and Apple Music have come along, and they've pitched the price at a level which punters feel is reasonable. They're getting an awful lot of traction.
I didn't take the Festive 50. I'm not going. I haven't got the attention span to listen to 50 songs again. But no, I was forever taping stuff for trying to impress girls and making mixtapes for them and doing moody poems and pretentious enemy style intros.
Not Robert F. Kennedy poetry, was it?
No.
No.
Is this no the right answer to that?
No is the right answer to that. Yeah. Yes,
okay.
Yes. Yes. If you've not seen it, don't Google it.
Okay. Well, that's Kieran. That's guaranteed to make someone Google it. You said to your class of students, don't Google it. There's 30 kids going to go on Googling that. So just don't Google that. Hang on. Well, also around that time, Kieran, it's the home brew. And people started buying all these homebrew kits, and people said this is going to kill the beer industry. And no, it's not, because homebrew is still this tasted like something you sieved out of the cat's litter tray. The Chanel example there, Kieran, I think is a pertinent one, because as Ali always says to people who say, I've spent £3,000 on a bag, good luck, I hope you enjoy the rest of your life. Our relationship is pretty much finished. But when I say, and we did this when the new Palace Mustard Yellow, Winner's Gold kit came out, and a couple of lads in the Portsmouth Arms got hold of shonky copies, and he said, well, they'll fall apart in a year. And I go, well, I'll be buying next year's shirt in a year anyway. Yeah. Or next year's, even if it's a hooky kit, it'll be, I only want it for a year. Exactly. Basically. So that argument falls apart. But it's one that doesn't go away, isn't it? And it's one that, it's like touting. Football will never get on top of the counterfeiters, essentially, until such time as it becomes illegal to buy them, in which case people will still find a way around that as well. How are you going to check whether someone's wearing it's bad enough you're going to have facial recognition. Now you're going to have to, people are going to have to go through is that an Adidas barcode machine as well?
There was talk at the European Championships in 2024 of the equivalent of trading standards officers in Germany checking the authenticity of kits. I was asked to talk on this topic. It was either for ITV or Channel 4. So I bought an official Nike kit and I bought a dodgy kit. And you could not tell them apart. You know, I got England kits, and I wore one of them to the final in Berlin, but I've got no idea whether I wore the right one or not. And I would be surprised if the police have enough on their plate as it is at present. Can you imagine them wandering into a pub with a barcode reader, testing your football shirts before a match? I don't think the Portsmouth Arms would take that with good humour.
Well, it might distract the police from some of the other stuff that's going on in terms of getting the Wi-Fi from next door's lamppost. What you wouldn't want is the French police checking whether you've got a proper shirt on, because as we've seen with Newcastle fans last night, and as we don't see with Palace fans tonight, it's not very pleasant. Adam Seidman as our first question. Thank you, Adam, for the pronunciation guide. Adam says, when it comes to big events that are on the government's list of those that must be free to air, the so-called crown jewels, they call them, like the World Cup, FA Cup, Euros, etc., how does TV rights bidding process for these work? Do FIFA or UEFA or the FA, etc., just name a price, or is there still competition? To be fair to Adam, I'm not entirely sure whether it's the whole World Cup or just the final that has to be free to it.
It is I think it's just the final, and I think it's the opening match as well.
Right, okay.
So yes, the FA Cup final, so therefore not the rounds, the World Cup final, and I think the opening match, the Grand National, Wimbledon, the Olympics, the Paralympics, that we do have this list of sporting events which are given some form of protection. Now, as far as the price is concerned, it still is a bidding process between the broadcasters and the rights holders. So, and you may recall that when we had the Women's World Cup in, was it 2023, 2022, Gianni Infantino threw a bit of a hissy one, to put it mildly, by claiming that some countries weren't offering what he considered to be an appropriate price for the women's TV rights. What price integrity, by the way, Mr. Infantino? I was looking at Cristiano Ronaldo, with who you had dinner last week, along with President Trump and Elon Musk, and all of a sudden, Cristiano Ronaldo's ban from the World Cup has been rescinded. That's an amazing coincidence, isn't it?
Isn't it just? Yeah, it would have given them something to talk about. As I'm sure it would have happened before the dinner, Kieran. It would have made a happier atmosphere when they went, "Oh, isn't that good? We sorted that out before we had this dinner, Cristiano." Yes. Before millions of Portuguese Americans decided whether or not they were going to buy a ticket to the
And I've been monitoring the secondary ticket market. You know that FIFA are now effectively their own tout. I tell you what, if I'd had a bit of inside information that Cristiano Ronaldo's ban was going to be rescinded, I could have bought low and sold high. I'm not saying that anybody would have done this and made a bit of money on the side, by the way. But anyway, back to the topic. So it is ultimately it's an offer from the broadcasters. Now, what traditionally happens as far as the World Cup is concerned is that BBC and ITV put together a joint bid. Now, if one of those parties said, I want to bid lower, there's nothing to stop ITV from saying, right, we're going to bid for every match. There's nothing to stop the BBC from doing it. And if they do put in low bids, we've got Channel 4 and Channel 5. But as you rightly point out, it's only the World Cup final. So there is nothing in theory to stop Sky from bidding for the whole rights, for putting all of the matches through Sky Sports, and then making the World Cup final available for nothing. They could put it on the Sky News channel, or they could put it through their YouTube channel, or something like that. So there are alternatives. So that actually does keep a de minimis level of price, because if the perception is that the BBC and ITV are deliberately lowballing on the price, one of these other bidders could come in and they could put together a package. And we've also seen just in sort of the last week or so with TNT being overtaken by Paramount in terms of the Champions League, right? So we now have other streamers. The World Cup's an amazing competition. We've got separate issues with it, but that's to do with organisation and governance rather than the football itself. It would be very attractive. So I think that means that the BBC and ITV cannot afford to put in a derisorily low price in the hope that nobody else is going to bid for it, because there are ways to work around this now.
The problem for ITV, of course, with this World Cup is timing. So with the FA Cup, technically the ITV, if it's shown live, the FA Cup final on ITV, which it is, then it has to be free to air. So, but all they do then is bump up the advertising prices.
Absolutely,
so they're not losing any money. However, with the timings of the World Cup next year, with the late games, will be kicking off probably at midnight in England. So they're going to have to take a hit. They're going to have to undersell their commercial breaks for that. So that's always a problem I think the last World Cup, the games were like 1 o'clock, 5 o'clock, and 8 o'clock. Perfect for commercial TV. But if they're going to be 5 o'clock, 8 o'clock, midnight, much less so.
Yes, at the same time, TNT were very pleased with the number of English cricket fans who got up. And to be fair, they only had to get up twice.
That's true.
That was a bonus.
That was a consolation. Yeah, one consolation. Yeah,
at silly o'clock. And we do change. I think during a World Cup, all of a sudden, Cape Verde versus Morocco, which under normal circumstances we'd have absolutely zero interest in, does take on a lot of interest because we've got one of them in our sweepstake or our fantasy team, and there are things running of it. So the figures always tend to hold up better than expected. But going back to your question, Adam, there is protection for the rights holder in that there are alternatives to the sort of the traditional free-to-air broadcasters.
Silly o'clock is my favourite cricket fielding position. See, that's another thing that I hadn't thought of. That the fact there's 48 teams in this World Cup, there's going to be some offices.
It's a lot of matches.
There aren't going to be enough people for a sweepstake in some offices. Some places are going to be having 5 teams each.
Well, I've already got my spreadsheet out for the Panini sticker book.
That's going to be massive, isn't it?
It is, yes. Yeah, that's one of the first things that you do as a nerd. As soon as you rush out, you get the book and you type everything, and that's the price. You go through the probability theory, and you crunch out a number.
Oh, so it's not just go down a newsagent and spending your pocket money on a couple of packets of cards in.
Well, you got to. I'm a completist by nature. And then you go onto social media and join these swapsies groups, and I'm sending 2 Bolivian fullbacks for a Honduran centre forward with some 17-year-old youth from Hartlepool.
Can I just point out, Kieran, there's several comedy clubs in this country that do not ask for 2 Bolivian fullbacks, whatever you do under any circumstances, because it won't be panini stickers you're getting.
Some execs want Gen AI everywhere. Others think it's basically a shredder for intellectual property. And your people? Yeah, they're already using it. Okay, picture this. Someone pastes the Q4 strategy doc and client list into a free AI tool and it's no longer yours. Harmonic Security warns people before they paste in sensitive data, so you can say yes to Gen AI and still protect what matters most. Visit harmonic.security before your crown jewels end up in a chatbot.
This episode is brought to you by Indeed. You're ready to move your business forward, but first, you need to find the right team. Start your search with Indeed Sponsored Jobs. It can help you reach qualified candidates fast, ensuring your listing is the first one they see. According to Indeed data, sponsored jobs are 90% more likely to report a hire than non-sponsored jobs. See the results for yourself. Get a $75 sponsored job credit at Indeed.com/podcast. Terms and conditions apply.
Toby Henry has a question, which we have discussed before, Kieran, but I'm happy to discuss it again, particularly as we had the conversation about kits, because it is something that comes up in conversation quite a lot. And Toby Henry says, watching a game this week, I noticed the players wearing a variety of different boots, red ones, yellow ones, pink ones, and I'm pretty sure each player might have different style preferences as well. My question is, who pays for them? Does each player buy their own boots? No, or does the club find out which type each player wants and buy them in bulk? I assume they don't wear the same boots all season, like we used to do in Sunday football. So do used boots get passed down to the B team like used match balls do? And do sponsors get involved? I'm thinking, says Toby, that clubs might have to foot a huge bill. Cha-chow. Well done.
Thank you.
In the circumstances, I'm prepared to let that go. It's a perfectly good joke.
Well, Toby, the answer is it depends, of course. Erling Haaland in 2023 signed a 10-year deal with Nike to wear their boots, and he is being paid £200 million for the privilege. Because think about it in terms of advertising. Every time that Erling Haaland scores a goal, the cameras focus on his feet, or unless it's a header. But that means that they're focusing on that Nike swoosh. And therefore, Nike are willing to pay for the privilege, especially given that Manchester City play in Puma kits. This is a way of getting the Nike brand into a Manchester City match. Cristiano Ronaldo, by all accounts, has a $1 billion lifelong contract, again with Nike. And this really used to irritate Adidas when he was playing for Real Madrid, because he was, and the players will commit to doing a agreed number of personal appearances wearing the kit. Now that we're operating in the world of social media, if you look at their Insta feeds and so on, you will see them when the new boot comes out. They'll be smiling next to it and so on. So it's a fantastic way of converting footballers into billboards. They are influencers. We have to acknowledge that. And at the elite level, the amounts involved are very, very generous. And that would apply for players in the, because you only have to score one goal in the Premier League, and you get your money's worth. You might not be on big money from a kit manufacturer. I remember, when we grew up, Kevin, Nike didn't make football boots, did they?
No, they did not.
It was, you had your Puma King, and you had your Adidas Beckenbauer. Those were the ones which were
not forgetting your Winfield.
Well, because my mum said that football was an English sport.
Yeah, fair point.
And therefore, I wasn't allowed to play cricket because it was an English sport. I only started playing cricket when I was 16. I love. That's why I was the official school scorer, and I used to, which was good. It was
Of course you
scoring
were.
is a bit like playing with a spreadsheet before spreadsheets were
Yeah.
invented.
Well, of course,
So
the most exciting thing about boots in those days is when a white boot. I remember a white boot coming out in the playground,
Alan Ball,
and then the revolving stud,
yeah.
which was a terrible idea. Just it must have led to more ankle ligament damage than anything else in the history of the football boot. But no, at my school, I believe Nike was a Greek goddess rather than a football boot. We used to buy catalogues in those days, actual catalogues made
Oh yeah.
of paper, and they'd be about 4 pages long and have 6 pairs of boots.
Oh, it was heavenly. When it drops to the lower league, it then varies. Sometimes an agent will pitch on behalf of their client. They'll go to Adidas or Nike, but some clubs you have to pay for your own boots. I think again at the elite clubs, what will happen is you will not just wear a Nike Tiempo or an Adidas, whatever it's going to be, the F50. I lose track of them. You will get a custom fitting. But they will be molded to your feet, because if it can make a marginal gain as far as the player is concerned, then that benefits the manufacturer as well. And they will be given unlimited numbers. Could they bequeath some of those boots? Yeah, you and I, we've seen enough players at the end of matches go across to the crowd, especially if they had a win. They hand over the shirt, sometimes they hand over the boots, and so on. Some players are footballers are incredibly superstitious, by the way. So if it's a lucky boot, you might be inclined to wear it for a few more matches, but they certainly can get through a fair number in a season.
Well, also they're much flimsier than they used to be, the boots, aren't they? So they're not designed to last long. But so the other part of the question from Toby is that certainly at Premier League clubs they do just get passed down at the end of the game. The non-superstitious players just bung that pair of boots into a bar. The idea of breaking a pair of boots in doesn't seem to exist anymore. You just wear a different pair each game, and basically they go down to the reserves, whatever level, or the youth team. When my cousin Tom was at Palace, luckily he had massive feet, and the only other player with the same size feet was Christian Benteke.
Oh wow!
So Tom used to get Christian's boots every week. So it's an interesting. I mean, it's only in the last 2 or 3 seasons, Kieran, I think the manufacturers have started making boots for women.
Yes,
because until then, women just had to buy small size men's boots for the most part, and of course, women's feet are designed, as my mother would say, God made women's feet very different. So boots have to be different. So it took far too long to rectify that. I'd be interested to find out what the boot deals are with WSL teams, Kieran. So I suspect the manufacturers are less generous with WSL players than they are with the likes of Haaland. But Chris Forth has a question that you like, Kieran. It's a specific club question. It's a big club. It's Newcastle United. And Chris Forth says, in terms of the money the owners pump into Newcastle United, is it a donation, non-refundable, or a loan with expectation of repayment? Does PSR treat both the same? I'm not entirely sure whether the word pump into Newcastle United is actually the right word at the moment, Kieran, is it?
Invest.
Yeah.
Invest.
Right,
yes.
okay.
Well, Chris, if you take a look at Islamic finance, and my research for these questions takes me to many places except Glasgow, by all accounts. I do feel so bad about that. I actually can't.
We both do, Kieran.
What you will find is that under Islamic finance, the concept of debt and interest is not part of Islamic finance. So as a consequence of that, the Newcastle Owners Public Investment Fund, they have put more than £300 million into Newcastle United, and that has all been in the form of shares. And what happens when a club issues shares? Effectively, the club gives the investor a piece of paper, and the investor gives cash to the club. Now, when Newcastle had I wouldn't say it was a complex, but it was a sort of bespoke shareholding agreement. The club used to be owned 100% by Mike Ashley, but when PIF bought Newcastle United, the Reuben brothers, who are minority investors, they own 10%. PIF was owning 10%, and Amanda Staveley was owning 10%. The other shareholders weren't necessarily in a position where they could put in these same levels of money. So there was a danger that if you put in money and it just goes all in shares, the PIF investment would go from 80% to 85% to 90%, and so on. And I've seen that at other clubs. And this is one of the issues, actually, that's caused a bit of consternation at Everton, because the new owners have come in, they bought shares, which means that what is a share? A share is a slice. So if you buy more shares, the other shareholders, their slice in percentage terms can decrease. And some Everton fans feel very marginalised on the back of this. So what PIF did, and this was quite clever, there was about, I think, 100,000 shares in Newcastle United, and PIF says we're going to buy just one share. So we're not going to increase our percentage holding of Newcastle United. We're going to buy that one share, and the market value of that share is, is perhaps 20 quid. Tell you what, we'll buy it for 250 mil. And Amanda Staveley said, thanks very much, because it means I still own 10% of Newcastle United. And the Reuben brothers said, well, hey, that's good news for us as well. So there are complications in terms of how it's accounted for. But the good news, Chris, is that it doesn't have to be repaid. Shares never have to be repaid, unlike loans. And in terms of the impact of PSR, this will only count towards the end of 25-26, because it's being replaced by the squad cost ratio. In terms of that, the first £90 million over a 3-year period counts towards PSR. Any excess is ignored.
Do you know, I'm slightly annoyed by the squad cost ratio. It's taken me 5 years of this pod to get my head around PSR. Yes. Now I've got a whole new set of initials to get told off by Guy for using wrongly. That sort of deal, Kieran, where a £20 share is bought for £250 million, is that unique to football, or is that a common practice in other businesses?
It is fairly unusual in other businesses, because normally what would happen if you were looking at a manufacturing company or a retail company and the company wanted to raise more money from shareholders, it would do so from what we would call a rights issue. And what happens here is that everybody is given the right to buy the new shares. And if you can't afford the new shares, tough. What happens is that your proportion of ownership of the company diminishes. I think this was a separate issue. So I think it is sort of, it can be very unique to football. PIF wanted to keep Amanda Staveley until she left the club on board, because she had quite a high profile. I think it was the same with the Reuben brothers and so on. So it's got more to do with PR rather than sort of traditional business behaviour. And I wouldn't expect to see that happen if, for example, Apple did it or Mercedes-Benz or whoever.
I'm just going to channel my inner Ali here, Kieran, because as you know, there are a wide range of things, unpredictable things, sometimes tiny things that get me going, really annoy me, make me sulk. With Ali is one.
Oh.
And that's if every now and again, if I accidentally say very unique, the room goes cold.
Yeah, that's fair point.
The room goes Mr. and Mrs. Beckham cold. It goes that's the level of chill. And I look at the icicles forming on the ceiling and the frost on the, and I have to go unique. Sorry, Ali,
yes.
Unique.
Yeah, fair comment.
Yeah.
Yes,
it's just the one thing, but she makes up for it. She channels all. See, me, I'm sort of holistically angry at loads of things, which gets me through the day. But there's only one thing that really makes her angry. Well, part of the tourist.
So she's not upset about not knowing the difference between Glasgow Rangers and Glasgow Celtic.
No, she would expect me to know, and quite rightly so. Yes. But no, she would shrug that off quite happily. But she would shrug off a Tory government more easily than she shrugs off very unique.
Hey, this is Bill Simmons from the Bill Simmons Podcast, here to tell you that Michelob Ultra, the official beer partner of the NBA, is bringing NBA fans closer than ever this season with chances to win great prizes, including courtside tickets. Enter now at michelobultra.com/courtside. Michelob Ultra Courtside 25 to 26. No purchase necessary. Open to U.S. residents 21 plus. Begins on October 1st, 2025 and ends on June 30th, 2026. Multiple entry periods. See official rules at michelobultra.com/courtside for free entry deadlines, prizes, and details.
This episode is brought to you by Nature's Bounty. Nature's Bounty believes your body is brilliant, naturally designed to thrive, inside and out. For those always looking for new ways to support your health from head to heels, Nature's Bounty has a range of over 400 vitamins and supplements born from 50 years of trust and care. Nature's Bounty. It's in your nature. Visit naturesbounty.com to learn more.
Now, Martin Wolfit has our last question. And initially, Kieran, I almost thought this was too simple a question to ask. But the more I think about it, the more I think it's not something we've covered in great detail. Because Martin says, I've always wondered if you wanted to buy a football team, where would you start? And what's the process? Now, obviously, I could recommend him to our book, Unfit and Improper Persons, Kieran. But that's more about starting a team rather than buying them. And we have spoke to the owners of Farnham Town recently and Chelmsford City, who bought clubs. One of them in particular, who bought the club without checking the books, had you scratching your head. And so we did get some insight, but I think Martin's question is a very valid one. You know, if you and I were to win the lottery, we've won the lottery of life, Kieran, let's face it. I'm saying that because Ali's just come home. What would you do? I mean, if you wanted to buy a Sheffield Wednesday, who do you contact? Do you contact the current owners? Do you contact the administrator? Is there an agent for these sort of things? Do you send an email? Do you ask your representatives to? What is the process?
Well, I think Martin here, we could probably go on for 2 or 3, or I could probably go on for 2 or 3 hours. So I will try to give you sort of a abbreviated version. Knowing, first of all, if you're going to buy anything, it's got to be up for sale. So how do you know if a football club is up for sale? To a certain extent, it's a bit like if you're trying to buy a football player. You start to do a bit of networking. Now, there are some people who act as if they call themselves football club brokers. And they tend, I think, to oversell their relationship with clubs, but they might be able to act as a mediator. I mean, and indeed, we've just been talking about Amanda Staveley. You know, that's what she's trying to do with 1 or 2 clubs at present. She's going to act as a broker, introduce somebody with money to somebody who's not having to sell the club, but it's something which is an option which they might consider. Now, if it comes to buying or selling anything, it comes down to 2 things. First of all, what am I buying? And secondly, how much am I willing to pay for that item? So in terms of what am I buying, under normal circumstances, this is where you would do your due diligence. So you might make a conditional offer. You know, I'm going to pay £300 million for this football club. You will pay a fee, and that fee would normally be non-refundable to get access to what we refer to as the data room. Now, the data room contains details of player contracts. Yeah, when do they expire? If you bought that player, are there any conditional fees that you might have to play? You know, if we win something, if that player plays 50 matches. So what you're doing is you're building up a portfolio of knowledge in terms of exactly what am I buying with this football club. Do they own the ground? You know from experiences with Ron Notes. If you don't do that, and you might say, surely you do that. In the world of football, we had Spencer Gore on from Chelmsford City, what was it, 2 weeks ago, and both of us were incredibly impressed. We thought, blimey, this bloke, a proper entrepreneur. He clearly knows what he's doing. And he said, yeah, bought a football club, didn't check anything. I knew they owed somewhere between 100 grand and £1 million to other people. Mike Ashley, again, incredibly successful business person, bought Newcastle United on a whim without doing any checking. to find out exactly what they're buying. But when you do this due diligence, you say, well, what am I buying? Property, players, receivable. What do I owe? Debt. What do I owe to other clubs for unpaid transfer fees? Do I owe money in terms of tax? And so on. And I know I've been talking to somebody whom I hold in high regard about Spurs recently. And we're saying, well, I'm surprised a bid's not come in from Spurs. And then as he or she, or probably he, given who it was, pointed out to me, I tell you what, we've not thought about what we refer to as a change of control clause. Now, Spurs under Daniel Levy have borrowed around about £800 million, paying on average 3% interest. The bank, and those loans aren't repayable until I think 2037 and 2039. So they've got another 12 years to go. The banks are really hacked off with it. So, provided Spurs make the payments, the banks have to just go along with that money. But there's a clause in those loans which says if a new owner comes in, we can renegotiate the interest rate. So that interest rate could go up to 6 or 8%. So that's actually putting some people off. They're inheriting the debt and they might have to go and pay 2 or 3 times the amount of interest. So all of this goes through. And you do your due diligence, you make adjustments for the price in exactly the same way. Let's say you put in a bid on a house, the survey comes through and the surveyor says, well, there's no insulation in the loft and the back doors hanging off, it's stuck together with sticky tape or whatever it's going to be. So therefore you would make an adjustment. If that's acceptable, you would then go through to the owners and directors test. So you'd have to talk to the Premier League or the EFL. And whilst you're doing that, you would be potentially arranging funding. So what the EFL and the Premier League say is, do you have the money and where is the money coming from? Now, if it's all of your own money, not so much of a problem. But if you're having to borrow, if you're front of house and you're getting third parties, it makes it more difficult. I'm aware of at least one deal in the EFL where there was a consortium wanting to buy a particular club, and it turned out that the money coming from one of the owners was coming from other sources. I say no more than that. And the EFL says, well, you either get this person out of the consortium or the deal's off.
You slightly confused me there, Kieran, speculating as to the gender of someone that you'd been speaking to, not me.
Yes.
Wasn't quite sure what I could add to that. I think to be fair to Spencer Gore, the new owner of Chelmsford City, he did, as you say, buy it like sight unseen. But he also worked out that given their assets, they can't have borrowed more than a particular amount of money. So he was very savvy about that. Could it be just as simple as Martin Wolfett there comes into some money and emails you and says, do you know a club's up for sale? Or could it be as simple, say, for example, Martin is a Luton Town fan.
Mm-hmm.
Could it be as simple as him saying to someone, would you mind getting me the number of the owner of Luton Town, phoning him up and saying, look, it's not for sale, but I'm willing to pay 20 million quid more than you did. That's fairly standard. So
there's you would go to the club website, you would find presumably the email address of the club secretary and say that I'd like to do this. Now it has to be said they get many of these every week because football attracts tire kickers, fantasists, lunatics. So then I think my first response would be either get lost, we're not interested, or B, let's have a conversation. Show us your money first. We want 50 grand, we want 500 grand down. As if you want access to our data room, this acts as a barrier to the ne'er-do-wells of acquiring a football club.
Thanks to everyone who's joined the Price of Football Club. If you'd like to join the club too and get every episode a day earlier than everyone else, ad-free listening and invite to our monthly Q&A sessions and our Christmas quiz, bonus episodes and more, then go to our website, priceoffootball.com. If you have a question you'd like answered on the show, email us at questions@priceoffootball.com. Don't forget you can follow us on Twitter, you can find us on YouTube, and go back to priceoffootball.com if you'd like to buy one of our books or a Price of Football T-shirt. We'll be back on Thursday with our regular news pod, the first one of December. So my advent calendar will be up and running. In the meantime, I shall hand you over to Mr. Kieran Maguire for his customary farewell.
And indeed, folks, by the next time we record a show, we could be winners of the Football Supporters Association Best Podcast Award.
We could be.
If not, expect us to be magnanimous in defeat. Let's face it, we've had plenty of practice on it.
Expect one of us to be magnanimous in defeat.
But if you want to support the show, and please, if you enjoy the show, you can help us in a variety of ways. One of those is to give us a review. It genuinely does make a difference as far as the optics for the price of football is concerned, and the numbers of downloads we're secretly quite proud about. Doesn't matter what you say. You could even say you would rather have the show presented by my Uncle Terry and Rachel Reeves, because he wants to know, are cash jobs going to be taxed?
Well, if they were going to be, I suspect she would have changed her mind by the time she did a podcast with Uncle Terry.
Yes.
Bye, everybody.
Bye.
The price of football. The price of football.